The moment is here. Flight Simulator 2024 Sim Update number 1 is there. In this video we're gonna look at the release notes. Let's roll the intro and then let's look at the details. Before I start, really a disclaimer, this will be probably a pretty lengthy video because the number of updates and fixes and new things which are added to Sim Update number 1 are enormous. And it's really enormous. I think it's the biggest update ever being released, even if I compare it with Flight Simulator 2020. So let's get started. The first thing you need to be aware of is that the marketplace will be available, but it's announced to be shortly, which means if you install this update, don't expect that the marketplace is there. It will be there, but likely not directly after the update. The good thing is that it will bump up the version to version 1.3.23, which is kind of weird because it's the previous version compared to the last beta version. So the updates are divided in multiple sections. So we start with stability and performance. So stability and performance, as the name already says, fixes on crash issues. So you will see a lot of crashes being fixed, for example during airport generation, but also when selecting liveries after reloading the game while not flying the default variation. But also skip to features at the beginning of an XM, which I don't recommend you to do because it makes it less, I would say, realistic. And also potential crash when switching on or off the VR mode for those who are flying virtual reality. Then there are some other things like renaming things. So say they renamed the bandwidth to download in the display FPS panel to avoid misinterpretation by the community. So it's not a bandwidth issue, it's a download or download. Not sure what's the it's the download speed maybe, I'm not sure. And they optimize some texture memory usage of the WASM gouges. So there are a lot of things in the WASM gouges, which is good because they likely use a lot of memory. Besides that, some specific crashes again, some crash fixes when the game close the game during package mounting, as well as the many avatars meet up online, but also a very specific fix for the Xbox, which could occur when you're exiting areas close to the anti-meridian, such as the Savu airport, for instance. And they improved some loading times for packages with a lot of individual files. Because you can imagine those small files will take longer to load than, I would say, packages with a little bit less files. Then we're going to the general bug fixes. In this list, you will find a pattern. And the pattern is, okay, it has, I would say, controller fixes, but also, I would say, graphical fixes, such as the call sign and flight number and the aircraft configured not correctly, but also wrong HUD colors, scenes flickering on the Xbox, again a specific Xbox fix because there was a high memory usage, and they now, I say, found a fix for that. But also a lot of rendering issues, like rendering issues of items outside of their frame. Or in case you've got the Deluxe Premium or Aviator version, the content was not being streamed when booting the game for the first time. Likely, most of you won't expect these or experience this issue unless you decide to reinstall Flight Simulator 2024. In addition to that, there were some camera issues, again some music issues were missing there, and some clock issues. The music issue only affected the legacy Discovery flight activity, so not the new ones. And they fixed also some things with, I would say, community packages being duplicated inserted into the content XML on each boot, which was not really, I would say, useful. And the last one, increased the screen exposure under heavy cloud cover. Then also there's some backward compatibility bug fixes, and those are mainly due to lightning issues. If we look at the lightning, you can see that at least this one is for lightning, this one is for lightning, and the other two, this one and this one, are for the graphical things. Those are for aircrafts which are from Flight Simulator 2020. So the first one was really that the light from the outside was bleeding into the inside, which meant that it was displayed in the inside. That's being fixed. But also the ambient light sensor to return a very high value if requested. And you will see that the ambient light sensor, if we look at the aircraft specific fixes, that they also made some adjustments to that. So pretty nice. Then some good news. For those who are waiting for the Cessna 185 Foxtrot Skywagon from Coronado, the first free aircraft is now available and is being part of this sim update. I already posted a video about this one, but if you're interested, you can try it of course yourself directly, or you can look at my video if you don't want to try it out yourself directly. In addition to that, there's the improved grouping of the 2020 aircrafts with an empty ICAO onshore model in the aircraft selector configurator. It's a fix. Now we go into the deep, because these are, let's say, this is a pretty long list, because you can already see it on the aircraft side, multiple updates, but also on the aircraft core system and glass cockpits, multiple fixes. So for the Airbuses, let's say summary, they optimize the memory massively, and that's kind of logic because this is all built by I&I builds, if I'm correctly. So that's why you would likely see these fixes. And that's all. That's really nice, because now your memory consumption should be less. If we look at the A330-300, however, which is a newer aircraft, you will also find some fixes, such as the FMS, which contains some fixes such as the custom waypoints, or hey, when below 100 feet, speed brackets show 260, should be 255. The FMS, the speed target message, should also be on the top. So really, I would say minor fixes, you might think, but those are making the aircraft more accurate because they were simply errors which were not modeled correctly. Then, in addition to that, we've got some fixes in the hydraulic systems, like the echo pressure not reducing, as well as the engine available coming when entry still going up, should wait for complete engine start before showing available. These issues are likely reported by real airport pilots, because I would say I wouldn't see this and I wouldn't even know this. Then going down, we find some texture fixes like the XL, the texture for ground or GND RCR CTL shown as off, not on, blue like other A330s, and the pre-segment VNAV logic improved. Other things like, okay, restarting the engine when on very high skies. I didn't try it yet, but I challenge you to do it. And also some sound issues where the sound was simply too loud. Cargo door issues were fixed, as well as the APU bleed air logic not respecting the ceiling, the dome lights were not correctly, and that's what you also see below here with the taxi lights, etc. So that's, I would say, pretty nice. The 400 mic Atlas, also an Airbus. In this one they also fixed some audio issues, mainly. I would say also some small, I'd say, graphical things like the chocks and the GPU not visible, but also the water dust and spray bug, the airport indicator color marking, as well as a WASM crash, which is really, I would say, crucial because then some systems might not work. Continuing with this, right? We now completed the Airbus part, but we're not there yet. So, and you can see that the Airbus part is missing from this index file. So, and also this one, the amphibian aerospace Albatros. Here again, you see what I also saw with other, I would say, aircrafts. Lightning. Lightning appears to be one of the crucial issues, and that's also what you see on the fora. You see a lot of people complaining about light being too bright. Well, it looks like that they have taken it seriously, and at least fixed some of them on the aircraft side, sorry. But also some other things like, okay, hey, the EFB not loading correctly. The autopilot not holding the altitude and vertical speed properly, right? This is for this specific aircraft, which had some issues with the autopilot. The American flag on starboard side, as well as the G1000 CDI nav source frequency swap control and lighting issues. So a lot of nice things are there. But there's also something new, at least I do think, because it says here you can now stand up on the nose, hatch opening improvements to water wake effects. So I do think that these should be on two separate lines. So this is the new functionality which has been added. And that's also what I saw with some other aircrafts. There are some more aircraft which received some new functionality. For the other list, right, that's change list 206, which is kind of weird because it looks like that there are now two versions, because you can see that this is for the same aircraft, right? It's for the U16 and the G111. So it's a combined checklist of fixes where you can see also the American flag. So this is kind of what I would say, to be honest, I was kind of a little bit surprised by this checklist, because if you would compare the version 206 and version 207, those are really extremely long, right? So I'm not sure, to be honest, which one is the, I would say, eventual list, but I do think that this aircraft, as part of maybe beta testing, received at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 really huge updates. So I do assume that all of them are cumulative, which means that this one has the same fixes which are in 208 and 207, etc. But in addition to that, I would say this list is being added. So if we go to all of them, right, we can see a similar pattern. I would say do see some, I would say, duplicate things here. And the weird thing is that they didn't add it to the 2101, which I would say makes me, scratching my head and think, hey, this is correct. Well, let's assume it's correct. But with that, let's continue this one. So there are some new variants for this aircraft, which is cool, right? Besides all the fixes, which we already went to, there's the new U16 variant search and rescue version, also for the G111. And if we scroll down, we can see also some improvements to the model, the weight and balance, but also the EFB is now there. The EFB is now mounted in the aircraft, right? And you can use it, as well as the cargo stations are now available for loading, but the EFB is still buggy with this. So I'm not sure if the EFB works 100% correct, but at least it's there. And there's new clipboard options, display or hide the EFB. And there's a manual included, also very useful. 207 also fixed, I would say majority of those fixes contains the aileron fixes, but also some lighting fixes and some other things. 208 didn't include too much, but then the final version introduced some new things again. At least I thought that I saw something new. I thought I saw a new livery, although it might have been with the previous versions of this update. Oh no, here it is. The Royal Canadian Air Force livery is there. So, and in addition to that, lighting fixes. So this aircraft now should have super lighting. Continuing with the rest of the list. The Baron G58. Also this one, multiple change list, which is kind of weird. Why don't you say post one list? So this aircraft also received 4 updates, I would say in between the first beta and the last beta, right? So and some, I would say, graphical issues, some tooltip issues, some navigation store and wing light tops are too dim, some camera issues again, covers are not removed, no collision on wings, prop sync inappropriate, alt load is faked, cowl flap not animated, registration liveries, adjusted to make career mode compatibility. So likely we will see this aircraft to be available for careers. And also some other things like unable to load the co-pilot. Aircraft becomes disabled in the career mode. Well, now it should be available. And multiple knobs and switches have been or lacking audio, right? So if you would turn it up, you wouldn't hear anything. With that, we're at the next one, the Bonanza G36. Also multiple fixes, including navigation radios were not fixed, propeller controls not visually not visually altered picture of approach, fuel pump switches are inoperable, but also some tilt textures missing. So simple fixes and some more complex fixes. This case, there's not a lot of new things for this aircraft, to be honest, based on the list, but I would say that's sometimes the case, right? Bonanza is already, I would say, between brackets, an older aircraft. For the C90 Beechcraft, the GTX King Air, they added some new things. For example, they added the WT21 V2. And did I miss it here? No, it's only for that one. So this one received the new version of the navigation system from working title. It received some updates for the checklist, and it also received a lot of improvements, mainly due to the contact points, the LOD, internal and external, and the lighting, as well as improved liveries layout. They also fixed some audio issues, and that's really nice because you can now do that. And they fixed an issue where you were unable to remove the engine covers on the left wing during pre-flight. And if you were unable, you needed to move to the other wing, where you would also remove one from the left wing. The Boeings, that's the next big aircraft. Also a lot of fixes. Fixes and issues with the CDUs, fixed issues with takeoff speeds being deleted. They also added some new things like the landing altitude flag on the PFD, improved landing altitude logic. But they also removed something. They removed the landing altitude from the hot altitude tape. Takeoff pressurization only happens if the engine running on bleed air, likely is a bug, and they remove the altitude trend vector from the PFD. So some interesting fixes for the aircraft. Also with the climb and derate logic is there. An issue with the MC CDU number 2, which was blank. And we do see, let's say, a similar pattern for the Boeing 747-400 global supertanker. First of all, there's some new things like the EFB is there, and the EFB takeoff and landing and performance tables. But also they add some switches to before starting engines checklist. They added some knob emissive and some heat blur. And they added some fixes like, they fixed some, minor things. But these ones are really interesting because these ones have all to do with navigation, but also using the approaches and stars, which will cause some issues, and those have now been fixed and are now being shown correctly. Also, the bank limiter selector is now set to the default to the auto position, so keep that in mind. And the select knob input acceleration for the altitude has now been made a little bit faster. Then the Dream Lifter. Also this one, multiple fixes in this update 1.2. They added some new stuff like the gear extension and the engine vortex ground, and they fixed the AP disconnect bar. Besides that, they added also the landing altitude, similar to the previous aircraft, and they fixed some things like really stupid things like the Control E not working. That's now being done. Some other fixes, you can see some commonalities from compared to the previous one, right? So that's good. And they fixed the climb, derate logic, the VNAV path, and they fixed the rough autopilot altitude capturing. Then the 787-10, which is, I would say, kind of between of brackets, kind of an older aircraft because it likely has been ported from 2020 to 2024. But here you can see similar fixes. Although there are some special ones, of course, because it's a different aircraft. You can see here fix the inverted mouse scroll, the EFB performance data distance calculations, doors not being animated, rudder panels not animating. In-sim checklist now include everything in the CDU list, as well as some fixes like the avionics not loading, the rudder not moving, and they fixed the inverted emergency light switch. So a lot of interesting things again here. Besides that, they added something. They added the automatic loading of airport transition altitude and level, and this one, which we already discussed. Then the Globemaster. The Globemaster, this one contains tons of fixes, including an interesting functionality. Fuel dump is now possible, which was not available. Other than that, we see a lot of lightning fixes, but also fixes where you would spawn on different spots where things would not work correctly after you would, I would say, start from that specific point. Also some tooltips, which is a kind of common. Some trim alarm adjustments. Transponder on Andy now displaying the correct mode, overspeed alarms being triggered correctly, engine blast effect detest fixed. Added the documentation page to the EFB, so you can now view the manual from inside the aircraft, and a lot of other cool, let's say, engine optimizations or aircraft system updates. Similar thing is for the Chinook, right, the helicopter. This one also adds some new functionality like text localizations, but also the engine and inlet covers, which likely also would say could add some things to the checklist, because there's something called out adjusted checklist, right? And that likely has to do with this one. And they also added the bottom position on the external ramp. Checklist has been updated due to new functionality, and they fixed some things like the tooltips, the interaction, the auto shutdown, as well as the tooltips on the circuit breaker panel, ICS panel, fuel panel, as well as the fix to the animation on the radar altimeter high limit knobs. Then the aircraft, the aircraft which did not receive a lot of updates, it's a Skyhawk 172, and again, it makes sense because this is likely one of the oldest aircrafts, because it was already part of 2020. But there was still a bug with the MFD, which displayed a dot instead of the aircraft. Nice. The Cessna 188. This one also got a lot of updates, including LOD updates, but also lightning updates, spray effect updates, hub spray system indicators. Circuit breakers are now implemented, so new functionality. Also added dynamic remove before flight ribbon has been added, and the exhaust heat effect has been added, as well as 3D liveries improvements. Have there also been things removed? Well, based on this, it looks like that's not the case. Here it says it's not available for purchase in career mode, new or used. I'm not sure if this is a fix or if it's, let's say, change, but hey, let's see. And they added also some other things like, let's say, the aircraft is missing in agricultural features that are required for the career mode, and a lot of lightning issues again. 2AB Grand Caravan, similar to the 172, not too many, but still a nice fix. Cessna 400 Corvallis TT now also has the working title G1000 V2, as well as some exhaustion heat effect, improved pre-flight inspection tooltips because they were not correctly displayed, and a lot of other improvements like cabin lights, exterior registration plates, improved propeller spins, oil measurement and baggage door animations, as well as some new functionality, thus ground marking effects. If we look at the second version, of the aircraft, say which is likely the GA version, it also contains a lot of things like checklist updates, but also only one view cap can be interacted with. Passengers can be seen walking next to the aircraft while completing the VIP private charter. Some dials on the gauge and the G1000 are missing audio. Z fighting on the battery switches. Missing takeoff checklist, right? So a lot of, I would say, checklist updates, but also some specific updates like this one, right? For the Xbox. The 404 Titan also received multiple updates. In this case, 3 updates. So first of all, you have more liveries, which is cool, but also you have some other things like texture improvements, medic acid adjustment LODs, or LOD improvements, cargo door and oil compartment automatically close moving away, passenger position adjustments, some fixes for the HSI, front wheel correction, misplaced shocks, and in the next version also improved LODs again, 3D livery improvements, fix the exterior lights, thrust indication, fix of light switch position on startup, and the animation of the baggage doors. Then the last one, which is also the final version of the aircraft, a lot of things, right? I was kind of surprised by the list since this is the, I would say, latest build of this aircraft, but it contains tons of things. Aircraft disappearing, medical transport character model rigs render at LOD 2 while viewing them with the cockpit camera. Brakes still work at lowest possible wear and tear value. So some nice things which will make it more realistic to use this aircraft, or this helicopter likely is, but pretty cool. 408 Sky Courier. Also the working title, G1000 V2. So a lot of working title updates. Pretty cool. This one contains also a lot of updates, including, let's say, transfer issues, including some buttons which are not working correctly, including some checklists which were incomplete, including a lot of LOD updates. Some rain effects have been added, overspeed warning test functions are there, yoke tooltip is missing. So I'd say kind of in line with the other aircrafts. So some nice things which are being fixed. The Cessna Citation CD4, they added a new default livery which fixed Z fighting. So challenge for you, what's Z fighting? I will look it up. I will create a video for you. Once I figure it out, I will post it. So they removed all the Z fighting, all the default liveries from both the CD4, but I also saw it from the Longitude. And this is pretty interesting because I recorded this video earlier. At least I thought I was recording, but I forgot to push the recording button. How stupid can you be? And I do see that they updated the change list massively because initially this list was much shorter, which also brings up the question, is this the full list of fixes or not? But that's another topic. For the Longitude, they added the additional checklist as well as a new instrumental camera preset, instrument number 11, and they adjusted some instrument camera presets. They fixed the displays, fixed an issue where sometimes the parking leveler could not be moved, and the PTU could sometimes provide hydraulic power to a system using hydraulic pumps without an electrical power source or cross-system hydraulic pressure, and they disabled the emergency exit. Well, not very smart, right, in an aircraft to do. The SR22 from Cirrus. Also 3 updates. Flight performance has been updated. Selected altitude is now routed to the nearest stand. And all the fixes with misaligned water snow effects, misaligned leveler moving at full throttle. Several severe windshield glare issues, added some prop wash, and added additional items to the exterior checklist. So checklist improvements, checklist improvements, checklist improvements. Did I say it? Yeah, checklist improvements. The Vision SF50. Also multiple updates. In first release, they added some minor fixes, right? I would say fixing the airport view type. The status synoptics now display the correct amount of windshield IPS. But in the second update, it was also fixing some things like the autopilot is no longer inhabited, while on the ground or below 400 feet AGL, tooltips were fixed. Interaction with the speed, ink deke wheel invented. Instrument light knob changes to the backlight intensity of the screens. And some auto throttle disconnect button on the left side has now been changed, right? So it now has the correct function. The Diamond DV20. Only one update, but still some interesting one, right? The flap switch doesn't show the tooltips. The EFB, mass and balance page is there. No level of details in the checklist. Ignition switch has no labels. Engine start checklist incorrect for fuel pump checks. So some nice things. Nothing crucial, I would say, if I see this. Then the Dornier C-Star. This one received again multiple updates, including sound updates, including door improvements, including interior interactive points fixed, including exterior fixes, including some caution lamp decal updates. If we look at the second update, which this aircraft received, still a lot of fixes for the audio and also the visible Z-fighting. So the Z-fighting appears to be an issue. I do see it more and more, as well as outlook within the EFB has been fixed. Some cockpit elements become transparent, and likely they fixed it in this one, right? So LOD, visual behavior fixes, exterior window animation added, interior camera position fixed, seatbelt and no electronics warning light added in the cabin. So some new functionality, but also some fixes. And if you thought that that was the latest one, no, there are more, right? You can see that this aircraft that died, was it? The Dornier C-Star, I do think that it received most updates from every aircraft, at least until we review it now, because there might be an aircraft which received more updates. So a lot of things being added, a lot of things being fixed. So really good to see. The Draco X from Godfriends, fully localized and some minor fixes. Mainly I would say the ambient light, but the ambient light I do think that is a Flight Sim 2024 issue, so they removed it completely. And you will see when we're walking through this checklist or this release notes, more aircrafts this functionality has been removed, so beware of that. And they increased the brightness for better lighting, and they fixed a fuel flow issue. The Fairchild Republic A10, new flight model, external LODs, readjust the EFV cargo screen. Package restructure, not important. Added cosmetic weapons, so you still can't use them, right? And some other things. Also readjusted the EFB cargo tab to improve visibility and usability. Then the CTSL, some minor fixes. Parking brakes were missing, few system variables, navigation graph issues, and missing interior. Although some of them could be pretty critical. Now I look at this. Then the Jetson, icing effects, tooltips. No SFX in multiplayer, and then some interaction points which were fixed, as well as misspellings on the tooltips, as well as the visual helper does not highlight nor paying the camera to skill switch and arm motor buttons. And a new localizer file, right, which is for language. Then the GMB Aircraft VL3. This one also has some fixes. 2 of them are, say, coming pretty popular, right? Navigation graph issues and aircraft config issues. But the other ones are pretty, I would say, random, right? Auto start doesn't work. Fuel pressure always shown. Wing, engine and empage missing collision. Spawning airport start with 0 fuel. All covers linked, no interaction volume. Propeller is disappearing. Pitot cover is not covered. A plane is not in the hangar. So a lot of nice things. I would say also some mandatory fixes which should be really there from the beginning on, but hey, they're now here, including the flap control lever and indicator lights not functioning accurately, right? Makes it hard. The Tobii Aviation, again, pretty long list, right? Not as long as compared to the previous ones, but here we can see several things again. Several issues on the aircraft. Well, that can be anything, right? The new hangar translations for 2024 are there. Backdoors are not interactable despite having an indicator. Some fix for the Garmin will display acceleration in wrong units. And add some new translation files. Incorrect navigation graph. Battery is not at 100% when starting the aircraft, and several other issues, including the aircraft system malfunction error reported during flight, which was not the case. The Magni M24 Orion. Change list. Roll rated increased by 10%. Checklist show 2100 RPM minimum of pre-rotation. Rotor high RPM values, so some minor issue fixes for the Magni M24. The Pilates from Mr. Hans Hartmann, multiple fixes. First of all, fix for the engine, the aircraft registrations and the engine instruments, as well as a change to the auto start procedure. And they fix some canopy issues, some certain rescue career support. The elevator trim on the G950 floats and gouge wheels have variants. And the inversible shocks on float variant when loaded and cool and dark, as well as they added more water effects for float variant. Cool. Doors are there. They're closed down automatically when ground speed exceeds 10 knots. And the aircraft can now only be exited using the door handle when on the ground and park brake is set. Right? If you don't set it, then you can't leave the aircraft. You're stuck. The Pilates PC6. LODs, 3D deliveries, medical equipment LOD fixes, cargo version interior texture updates, a lot of cool things. Going to the second update for the aircraft, which was part of the beta. Pressure dump doesn't show anything. Checklist cannot be manually completed. DME not showing. ILS approaches. So both, I would say, aircraft updates, but also aircraft system updates, right? Or helicopter system updates. So cool things. Again, LOD updates, checklist updates. That's kind of the common pattern which we see, but also some very specific ones over here, right? ACS pressurization system is inoperable, for example. Pipistrel Towers M. Multiple fixes, also some spawn states which were not correctly, dim switch conditions which were incorrect. They removed the heat blur effect in VR mode. And that's what you will see later on also with some other aircrafts. Then the Pipistrel, some graphics were not correctly set, and the troll and propeller control labels, hover extreme distance from the control has been fixed. The parachute sky Rascal, some minor things with the checklist. Also, the aircraft does not crash about 40 knots, and VR incompatible message has been added or removed. Kind of, let's say, question mark. The Zim Aviation. Also, they removed some things like the airport cockpit lighting, and they removed the heat blurs also for VR. And they increased some brightness of some lights, and they improved the flight model and right yaw tendency during stable flight. Some air. Before we continue with the next session, because we're not there yet, there are so many fixes. Yes, there are. Will it 100% work correctly after this update? Definitely not. Am I impressed by this list? Of course I am, because you can really see that they're taking this, I would say, these things seriously, right? So all these reported, at least you can see some of them are fixed. I'm pretty sure that everything has been fixed, but that makes sense, right? That takes time. But it's good to see this progress already. So for the criticasters, keep feeding the feedback to Asobo, because you can see they're doing something with it. Is it time yet to jump on this update on Flight Simulator 2024? I would say that still is up to you, but with these updates, I would say give it a try again, and then would say do your own judgment. With that said, let's continue. Because we have the aircraft core systems. They fixed some issues with the fuel type parameter to be ignored, and they fixed an issue causing some aircraft to start with zero fuel, which we also saw in the aircraft section. For the glass cockpits, they made some changes. Some of them were caused by overly exposed, right, which will simply mean that it's overlighted. And for the G1000 and the Garmin G3000 and the GNS, there are some, I'd say, similar issues. For example, this one about the autopilot is now inhibited from activating altitude capture mode for a short time each time the autopilot reselects the altitude is manually changed. some fixes with the flight plans, the RMP, AR approaches, as well as the electrical power state of the Navcom radios were sometimes incorrectly represented. This is a pattern which you see with all the, I would say, or with most of the Garmin systems, except for this one. The G3000, 5000 has an additional one for the GTC Direct 2 page. And the G3X Touch is completely different, although there are some fixes for the flight plan. And this one is, I would say, kind of similar compared to this fix in the G3000 and the other ones. The GNS 430, 530, this one contains the same fixes as the, or say most of fixes for the G1000 and the Garmin G3000. So I will not go to them because I want to jump to the LX9070, which has, I would say, only one fix. This one wins. However, it depends from which point of view you look. Because if you look at the system receiving most updates, well, that's where we arrive now. The Prime SEPIC 2.0 integrated avionics system. Does it make sense? I do think so, because this is a completely new system, and it's likely what we saw also with the working title, let's say, systems, which initially had a lot of issues, but eventually, well, they fixed a lot, right? And that's also why you see in this case, you see only fix. So more fixes in this, for this aircraft, right? But they also added some things. Yes, they added some things, a few, right? These ones, multifunctional control, PBD, show info page. Some avionics settings will now persist between flights, implement transponder, alternate mode switching, landing gear extended speed limit, as well as the Lido and FAA chart viewer is there. But for the majority, it are fixes. And there's a fix in wide variations, right? Buttons which are not working, approach which were not working correctly, procedure lags which were being removed when changing procedures. So a lot of fixes. So if you experience some issues with the Prime SEPIC 2.0, try it again after this update and you likely will experience less issues. The Pro Line 21 integrated avionics systems. Again, here's some issues with the navigation system, as well as the flight plan page after canceling the mod. It could cause some issues, and this likely will be fixed now, right? So that's good. Same thing for the S-Best flight system. Power dim overlay not displaying correctly, but also some other nice things like fixed arrival page, merging of approaches, flight paths. So a lot of, let's say, navigation system updates for the navigation systems, except for those who are, let's say, kind of already a little bit longer in flight sim. Then some physics updates with the helicopter CFD rotor wash being fixed. There's a flight system update, the magnetic variation data to WMM 2025 model. And that's where we end at the next part, which received a lot of updates, which is the electronic flight bag, also known as the EFB. So first of all, some things which were irritating when using this. For example, select the minimum contingency fuel in a planner app did not allow the manual fuel to be entered, as well as some points where you would not be able to or would disappear when you add the waypoint button, or at least try to do that in the planner app. They fixed some shortcuts to size and rotation on the planner app. But there are also some new functionality. For example, it will now show you when it's loading a map so that you don't think it's stuck, but it shows you now what it's doing. Also, they added a skill line on the planner app. And I thought that I saw somewhere here it was the mouse wheel zooming chart. So you can now use your mouse wheel to zoom into the planner, which is cool. Other fixes, the weather tab page in the planner app missing hour selector, as well as the the check mark appearing on the hover in procedure selection planner app. So some nice things for the EFB. Going to the gameplay, because the gameplay also received a lot of updates. The pre-flight, not too many, only increased the default player character camera mode, as well as some would say rotated x-axis and y-axis action curves to keep previous sensitivity. But the career mode received a lot of updates, a lot of fixes which caused crashes, which people didn't like, which I can fully understand. Some server issues which were fixed, but there are also some fixes, and this is the full list, where there is a dependency likely on the server end, which you will likely not see directly, but maybe in a few days or a few hours you will see this functionality being enabled. You can see that it includes, let's say, improved, including VIP chart missions and night missions, but also the current currency reward on the world map now takes reputation bonus into account. Increases or the passive income is now increased when flying employee missions, as well as the passive income window is not shown when certain conditions were not, meaning that players could not retrieve their passive income, as well as the difficulty displayed on the map was now being fixed. This is, I would say, it looks like that they're gonna change the difficulty, and based on that, this will be the difficulty stars. So this will be the minimum stars. But also there are some very special things, like the following specializations had their base reward increased. So you can try them again, you will get more bonus, which is good for you, right? Good for your career mode. On the missions pack, they also made some changes because in the mission pack there were also some issues like the announced clear runway that prevented the player from reaching maximum score on the airline procedure objective. And there were some issues fixed which caused some issues with specific certifications, which caused, say, some weird scenarios. For example, you were asked to contact the airport at the arrival when there was no control tower. I experienced this one, I would say, multiple times. For the agricultural aviation, they fixed the issues where fields used in the agricultural aviation were sometimes covered by trees. Well, that's hard. And for the medevac, they fixed the missions flow not continuing when the HC was speaking at the same time as a medical crew before patient check. And they fixed the retract landing gear step appearing during descent phase. Therefore, those who like to fly certifications, some good news, 2 or 3 fixes at least. First of all, one where you would stay stuck in the rotorcraft if you would land too hard and if the skids were broken. For the IFR, there were 2 issues. One of them was the aviator performance while landing on the right way. It's now fixed. An issue where the CDI and transponder not configured properly. Although this one you could fix it manually yourself while doing this exam. Online services. Well, some fixes were fixed friends aircraft that sometimes do not appear, as well as they fixed the weather issue where all the players multiplayer option not saved when saving or staying lifetime. My friends, this list is so long, right? You're impressed? I'm pretty impressed. Am I convinced they fixed everything? No, not yet. So let's continue with the world. First of all, there are some fixes for the shared libraries. Shared libraries are used by multiple airports, multiple sceneries. This one is provided by Gaia, right? They fix multiple jetway models, LOD pops and close distance, as well as the updated textures and new assets being added. So some new things have been added. Then there's some I would say bugs which were reported by a lot of people where, say, cliff textures sometimes displayed on photogrammetry buildings and city lights were displayed on the photogrammetry landscapes. That's now being done. And the giant trees were removed. So challenge for you, if you're watching this video, try to find the giant tree after sim update number 1. If you found one, then post the location of that giant tree. Challenge for you. Then they fixed a few cases introducing blur in aerials, and the aerial is no longer using super sampling option. They are now always sharp. Okay, always. Keep that in mind, always sharper. Airports. Multiple airports received updates. Especially there were some fixes for the lights not supporting multiple meshes, which caused some weird behavior, as well as the strobe pole rotation was fixed. And some lights spawning with flare but without mesh support. This was a large complaint from players that the lighting was not realistic at airports, and based on that, already during one of the developer webcasts there was some mentioning about lighting updates. Well, here you see the result. Besides that, there were a few airports received specific airports, including some aircraft placements for Seattle, right? The cargo parking was not correctly. Vegetation improvements for LAX, also some spawning options for parking 3 to 8 and 3 to 9, as well as some parking space naming updates. Rest of the airports, a lot of LOD improvements, some fixes, in this case fixed bridge collision at EDM for aircraft taxiing. Fixed water, and also some glider support, helipads, winches. It's, I would say, pretty nice. Then the My Library. First of all, some nice things, like they added a conflict pop-up if you try to enable both the 2020 and 2024 version, which is nice. And they also fixed some things like, okay, hey, photogrammetry not being disabled in-game when disabling photogrammetry package. Well, why? That's good. So now you can really disable the photogrammetry package. Then they added a lot of functionalities, like, I would say fix some functionalities, sorry, like sorting, filtering, screen reader was not reading all the text, and several joystick navigation issues. They improved the localization, and they also added a nice loading gauge to feedback on activation of deactivation of the process, which means you can activate a package and deactivate, and prior to this update you couldn't see things happening, but now at least you will see some, I would say, things showing up. Virtual reality, there are some things being fixed, although I think these are only a few minor fixes, especially if you play VR. Then I would say there's much more to fix as far as I understood. Controllers, a lot of things. Xbox controller specific issues with the mouse, but also they have added some improvements like the feedback when setting the input curve axis sensitivity. They added secondary standalone profiles for certain peripherals. Not sure which peripherals, that's unclear, but there is some option for that. And then besides that, there are some other things like the placeholder images in the control settings, where they would show the peripheral which you were using. Sometimes those images might have been incorrect. That's now being fixed. And also some inverted axes which are now being fixed, as well as the left braking axis issue which will trigger 100% brake application. Not so nice. Continuing with the activities. This one, they fixed several things, like the scoring for the keep the CDI centered at the IVR airnav training, as well as the missing engine detent notification to the airliner landing training, helicopter training, 2 fixes. So nice things which are there for you if you love to fly those trainings. Then the last section, because we don't discuss the dev mode, the free flight. The free flight also received multiple updates, like the flight condition weather live always available, or the condition live player only available when the flyer is in live time weather. Some buffering issues were there, but there's also a known issue to be aware of, that the live weather won't apply correctly after using the 24th historical weather. So keep that in mind. So with that, we're at the end of this video. It is a pretty lengthy video, at least I do think it is. And you can see, I would say, developer updates also. There are tons of updates, right? So are they listening to the feedback? Definitely they are. Are we there yet? No, definitely not. After which update will be there? Or will be 100% there? I would say I wouldn't count on after sim update number X. And X is really, I would say, I don't know. Because sim update number 2 already also contains a lot of fixes based on the bug list, right? And if you see this list compared to the bug list, it's really enormous. I would say, again, I do still think that this is the largest sim update ever released, even, I would say, when we, or at least, yeah, I would say including sim update number 2020, I do think that this is definitely the biggest list. Makes sense, right? Because we got a lot of more aircrafts, a lot of more aircraft systems, and a lot of new, I would say, aircraft and new systems. And I do think that, I would say, they've done their best to fix a lot of the things. But again, keep that feedback coming, right? Keep those bug reports, which you can see over here, bug reporting hub. Report those bugs, because if you don't report it, then I would say it's pretty hard for them to fix the issues. Also, make sure that you're describing the issue very clear, how to reproduce it, because it will help them reproducing it earlier, and then also likely finding the root cause earlier. Here ends this video. We went to the full checklist, or not checklist, release notes about, say, checklist updates, lighting updates, aircraft updates, aircraft stability updates, flight simulator stability updates, general bug fixes, airport updates, world updates, mission updates, training mission updates, and a lot more. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button, and I hope to see you back next video, which will likely be pretty soon. Thanks for watching, and see you back next time.